a huge amount of possibility where people said it was entirely ruled out.
So just before we go any further, I'd like to know exactly where you both do approximately date this first couple, just to be clear. Now, a young Earth creationist will, of course, say about 6,000 years ago. But Joshua, I know you have a kind of particular perspective on where you would, guess that this first couple came from. And Bill, it sounds from what Josh has been saying, you go a bit further back. So Joshua, where do you place them and why?
Well, I mean, I think I'm talking about a range where I'm really thinking through what's plausible scientifically. And as a scientist, I just want to be, truthful with the church about that. And I think that range can be as recent as 6,000 years ago, going back to probably about 2.2 million years ago. And the big distinguisher about, between picking a recent date like 6,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, or 15,000 years ago is going to be really this core question about whether or not we think that there was humanness outside the garden. And Bill doesn't think that there was humanness. And so there's a ton of evidence in anthropology that humanness goes back, at least, 70,000 years ago. But he's made a case for 700,000 years ago. Other people have made a case for about 2 million years ago. But that's going to push you farther back. It's not anything to do with genetics. It's purely about the archaeological record. And other people are going to say, hey, we don't actually see that there's a problem with humanness outside the garden. I mean, angels are human-like in some ways. If we saw intelligent aliens, they'd be intelligent. I mean, they'd be human in some way too. So the idea of there being people outside the garden is a problem. And in that case, I think people are going to very strongly tend to a far more recent Adam and Eve. And I think that's just the distinction. But as far as what I've done is really try to argue that both Bill's point of view or what his preferred view in that range is plausible. And then what my preferred view is plausible too. That's really, there's just a huge range. There's a huge amount of possibility where people said it was entirely ruled out.
Bill, what's your perspective on that? I know this brings us into the territory that you didn't want to dig too much into of your differences with Joshua on this humanness aspect of the other, hominids and so on. But what, I mean, for you, the place where you place yourself, is it because you have to kind of go that far back to where you're seeing the evidence in the archaeological history of this humanness kind of developing in a very obvious way?
It's partly because of my universalizing interest. I'm not willing to allow there to be human beings on this planet that are not descended from Adam and Eve. And so for that reason, I've got to push back in time to the most recent common ancestor from whom all humanity is descended. And so if you're convinced, as I am, that Neanderthals are fully human, you've got to go back at least to the last or most recent common ancestor of both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. And this is a mysterious species known as Homo heidelbergensis, or Heidelberg man, who lived somewhere around 750,000 years ago. And as I said earlier, placing Adam and Eve at that juncture is very convenient, because by then the threat of population genetics evaporates. When you get that far back, it's perfectly possible to have a primordial human pair from whom all humanity descended. So the difference between Josh's proposal and mine, the recent genealogical Adam and the ancient genealogical Adam, is going to be whether or not you allow there to be human beings who are not descended from Adam and Eve, or as Josh puts it, people outside the garden.
Yeah, in the distant past, because when it comes pretty quickly, everyone would descend from Adam and Eve. And I think I understand what's going on, Justin, because you're trying to kind of parse out, well, what's your view and what's his view? But I think what's interesting about this actually is that we might have the same view with different emphases. Where I think for that theological difference, which I think Bill would, I think that his point of view is entirely orthodox. He's not a heretic for believing that. Bill might be a bit more pressed to say this, but I think that he thinks that what I'm saying is also legitimate theologically. Maybe he doesn't disagree or favor it, but if he got to heaven and talked to Jesus in his post resurrection state and found out he was right, he wouldn't be, I think, too shocked, maybe a little bit. And so, but what we're doing is we're kind of working together, I would say, to really kind of mark out a large range of possibilities for the church to work through and to think about these bigger questions.
That's so right, Josh. We want the church to have options and not to be put into a birdcage of one particular hypothesis.
That would be a real mistake. I think the reality is that there's like something prophetic about the diversity of the church. There's something beautiful about it. We've been told that traditional Christianity really has to change, but actually it turns out there's so many ways to make sense of it together.
It's very, very interesting, and I got that sense of myself reading your book, Bill, that you're laying out the options. You're very open to saying, here's what this camp thinks and this camp thinks, and here's where I think you can actually have a range of views here and not be outside of historic Orthodox Christianity.